All right, guys, so I'm taking you guys on a journey into my life, and a lot of it's not going to make a lot of sense to you guys for all kinds of different reasons, but I'm going to get you there. I'm going to get you to understand what it is that's going on here, and it takes a bit of a transition point, right? It's actually quite similar to, okay, how do we get this idea of like a wheel and going places, and now like a car gets out of it, right? But you've got to work on the building blocks to understand how all that works, and like from afar, it looks really alien strange, taken into a vacuum. I mean, now we're used to cars, but I will explain a lot of the things and try to put together some pieces that'll be useful for your lives, because let's be honest, my life's not like most people's lives. When I'm thinking of choosing a place, I'm actually using a lot of poker-like logic to sift through a lot of complicated variables to figure out where the best place to live is. And so I'm about to break down what it was that led me to living in LA using this kind of logic, and to mention first what the end outcomes are. This is actually important. In poker, you take this for granted because you just think it's money. It's not always money. You actually have to define what your goal is first and how to achieve it. So let's talk about why I chose LA for a location, because it's actually quite important. I had many different goals, and poker being one of them. Let's start with the poker, because I know you guys are poker players, a lot of you guys watching, and guess what? LA is one of the places where poker goes the furthest. It's got a bit of this reputation of being a little bit edgy. A lot of people who are quite popular play it. There's a lot of celebrities that are into it, and it's got more of this scene of like it's this fun pastime, and you can be a bit of a street hustler or whatever and succeed at it. You need a bit of street knowledge for it, and so it doesn't really have this reputation of being this nerdy thing, which is a big part of poker. Actually, it's one of these weird situations where street knowledge and nerds can kind of intermix through it. That's actually a very unique positive that poker brings. But here in LA, it doesn't really have the reputation of being nerdy, which is generally not considered cool. It is sometimes, by the way. What is considered cool, I personally realized, is a little bit arbitrary. That's one of the reasons why I chose LA. Another reason is it's an hour flight away from Las Vegas, so at least in my crazy mind, that means it's almost the same city, so I can just fly from LA to Las Vegas, where I have to be a lot of the time. There's also multiple different streams going on in LA. So there's the Hustler live stream, which you guys have watched, and watch me play high stakes and get crushed, coolered for $200,000 and win $200,000, all that good stuff. And there's the live at the Commerce as well, so that's cool. Another reason is it's relatively close to Asia, in my crazy mind, where it's a 16-hour flight actually. But at least if we're trying to make all the pieces come together, if I was to stay in Miami instead, which would be even a much further flight away from Asia, even though I enjoy Miami a lot more, guess what? It's far more convenient relatively to fly from LA to Asia and then do a lot of things there. Or to Tokyo, it's a direct flight. To Hong Kong, it's a direct flight. To places in China, it can often be a direct flight, such as Shanghai, which is amazing, by the way. Last reason is, as you guys know, I would like to get into the entertainment business. We're making content here. That's kind of entertainment, and there's loads of that here. And an easy doorway of sorts is through poker, where guess what? A lot of people in entertainment and content creators do operate. So these are all the reasons that I picked LA as my main base, or one of my main bases, I should say, for why I'm staying here. It depends who's watching. If it's you guys that are just starting out in poker, you should be thinking, okay, how do you maximize your EV and have like a reasonable quality of life? LA has pretty good quality of life. Not amazing, by the way, but that's a big thing, is figure out, okay, what's the location where you can make the most money? It can be Texas, can be like Pennsylvania, where poker's legal, can be, I think, Ontario in Canada. If you're near Italy, you could go to Italy and make money there. There's lots of different possibilities. I've talked about Taiwan is good. Poker recently boomed in Vietnam as well. There's lots of possibilities. But this is the sort of process that I'm used for making these macro decisions, which is a big theme of how I do things in my life, even though I'm not perfect. We'll get to all that. So the flute was actually suggested to me, and there's a few different reasons for playing it. One, it goes somewhat into the realm of entertainment, so that's a bigger picture thing. Another thing is it's quite unique, and it's there are some odd, mysterious things that are fun to play about it. It's satisfying in a certain way because you do make a unique sound with all of it that can't exactly be replicated with AI, I think. Not 100% on that, but it's a little bit different from electronic music, which I also appreciate. So first of all, poker fits into this category of using, generally speaking, it looks to be this way anyway. You use the logic to make your various little decisions in order to create some kind of expected return. And I wanted to build my skill set in other ways that represented the opposite of that. Playing music is one of the ways to express oneself, basically channel your emotions into something. And at some point I realized that actually doing this was a way to create impact and thus to create a similar conclusion as you would through poker, but now we're doing something that appears arbitrary anyway. The point being, both poker and both creating art, i.e. in this case music, do result in creating an end game result. In this case, you want people to feel something, or perhaps you want to create an institutional change or a societal change, which is actually now a bigger goal that I have. So that goes into why music, and actually why dancing too. Dancing is actually apparently symbolic language, and it turns out that all the very advanced spiritual people do dance almost universally, such as Krishna, Shiva, all the sages and all of that. They in fact have a wide range of interests, by the way. Dancing was, for whatever reason, I believe this is a big reason why, just a ways of expressing themselves and communicating in ways that just didn't follow the format of words. Turns out also that dancing is one of the things that makes oneself happier. It's more like investing in a sort of happiness, if you can say. I actually did have lots of fun learning various different kinds of dances that were like stage dancing, and it's also apparently good for cardio. So as for the flute, okay, so it's actually a bit of breath work, and I personally find breath work incredibly boring, and this, you could say, would be along the runway towards doing more breath work if I can get more used to this, or if at least I determine that I really should do this and change myself so I do more breath work. So that was a big reason why I chose flute, because, well, one, someone suggested it. Two, now I can actually do breathwork and do something that's a bit fun, whereas the alternative of just sitting there doing breathwork is very boring. Another thing is it appeared to teach a couple of the traits that I wasn't necessarily that good at, such as patience. Not really my strength. I have some patience, precision, and attention to detail. You need these a lot for playing the flute, and if you play the notes a little bit off, if you miss them a little bit, you mess things up. This is also true of music. You need to really be present in order to do these things. And so it builds up all those sorts of skill sets. It's a way of escape, you can say, from what I've been going on to my main practices like poker. If I was on a downswing or whatever, it does suit that role as well. Although there are many things that's a bit healthier than, say, video games, although I still do that a little bit. It's not so bad. Another thing about the flute is you can just take it out and play it. It was incredibly convenient. You can take it anywhere. And now with this, I can be the guy who has a little flute song to play every now and then at an event. All right, working out. That's going to be useful for you guys. Actually, studies have shown that similar to cold plunges, working out and doing difficult workouts actually improves your willpower by a lot, and by quite a bit more of a factor than cold plunges do. This is what Dr. Mike has found out through his connections to research, or whatever research he's conducted, that he's posted on his channel, Renaissance Periodization. It's a channel I use a lot to answer the deeper questions of fitness and health. I'm a kind of person that always wants to know the deep why behind things. Like, why is it good to not eat late? Apparently, it's not really a big deal if you eat late. Why is it good to do workouts? Well, this is apparently a big reason, because this actually improves your willpower and discipline by quite a lot, according to research, and keeps you from not being fat. Quite an important thing, and actually does benefit your poker game in some kind of way. It'd be really nice to conduct a study on how it does. I'm sure it does, especially your endurance for long hours and all that good stuff. So this actually is important. That being said, if I'm really honest, a big reason I did this just to look better and just be more attractive. The only thing about that is there's apparently quite diminishing returns on that, as also Dr. Mike has shown in one of his videos, that if you're talking about being attractive, women don't care too much if you're extra ripped. I'm not totally sure about that, but that being said, being extra ripped takes loads and loads of discipline. Man, to get to 8%, 10% body fat takes loads of willpower, and there's loads of respect related to that just from the overall population, and that's something to consider. I either do it in the morning or late at night, only because if it doesn't happen in the morning, it's not happening because I have many other things to do. We're playing poker later on, and this is just what has to happen to make sure things happen. This is when I'm in my home in LA. I'm in a place where there's a gym right downstairs. I prefer convenience because Google is searching all the where the gym is and all that is a real pain in the ass, and there's loads of things that I can get straight there, and all the action in LA, or a lot of action when it comes to business and building your brand and working in entertainment and all that, is pretty close to West Hollywood, which is where I prefer. There's things that are not so far away in other places like Studio City or Beverly Hills or whatever, but West Hollywood's a pretty good location if we're talking right here. This is where all the stuff is. We want to make shit happen now.
What happened to 2 legends in the building? Phil Lock and Jungleman.
3 legends. Peter Cross.
I don't know about nowhere. Steve, yeah, you know.
Chose last, so.
A really important factor in this game that you guys don't necessarily need to think about too much is it's a streamed poker game where loads of people want to see, and this is definitely going to affect how a lot of people play. And there are people that are on this that are going to be good for watching poker TV on the whole, meaning they more likely have colorful personalities, but also more likely have colorful styles of play. It's very important, and that's something I'm definitely thinking about. Now, this is something for you guys who are starting out. You don't really need to think about this. The guys at higher stakes who are successful or have businesses or whatever, you do need to think about that, because those games do not play the same way. The hive mind or the way the population plays does not play the same way as it does with people trying to grind and make a living or trying to learn. And there are definitely things that are consistent between those two. So usually at a private cash game at your house, or online, these are both a bit different. There's going to still be quite some characters and you all will know each other, have lots of history, whatever. That isn't necessarily true for these online stream games, first of all. And for these online games, there will be like a handful of exploits that just kind of work universally, and there'll be a lot more of the more basic player type, which is loose passive and just tends to check fold too much and doesn't put up a fight in a lot of different spots. But that changes wildly on these stream games, where people often want to look cool, or like they often have a colorful personality, etc. So you really have to pay close attention to who does what, especially when you're trying your previous population exploits that work in other areas such as the online games, because they may not work against a lot of these guys, and they may also think the same about you, that you're playing crazy on these streams. Yeah, for the stream games, you usually don't have a whole lot of information, but you can have some, and it matters a lot more to tailor your play against more specific player types. It also matters just to not make any crazy folds for the most part, because there's a much higher chance that people are exploiting in some kind of direction. So you still need that baseline of theory. For all you guys grinding out, the stream games are not at all what you're used to. There's a whole different meta game going on, and there's even a meta of trying to get in other games. You guys don't need to think about any of that. All you guys need to do is figure out how to beat your opponents. Usually that just means exploiting a lot of basic leaks that people have over and over and just not getting screwed by the rake, which it's important for you guys. But we don't need to think about all that. We just need to beat Phil Lock, make sure he doesn't bluff me off trips or anything as he once did, not get bluffed off flushes, which I also did. That's more or less the goal. So these games are really luxurious compared to what you guys are often used to. You kind of get everything handed to you, at least in my shoes as a bit of a poker celebrity. I often use this opportunity to eat healthy, because oftentimes it takes a minute to really eat healthy and eat good food. So I usually actually do eat, at least on the stream, I actually eat a lot worse than it looks, like chicken breasts and hummus and all that, as I got here, and broccoli. I get a massage just because I like it. I'm spoiled like that. I can get a massage pretty often. Oh, I forgot to mention that you can get sushi a lot at these high stakes too. The high stakes are quite luxurious. You can have lots of freedom, you can kind of do whatever you want. And I usually use that to my advantage to add more things that I'd be doing. I also don't mind to travel so much to a lot of these locations, because you can do lots of things while traveling, take care of a lot of business while texting. I also read a lot. I've got loads of different books that I read about anthropology, spirituality. This is how you get into dancing, by the way, is there's a connection between that. And even in philosophy, which is another kind of book that I read, there's books on business, self-improvement, all that kind of stuff. It's mostly nonfiction books, but there are some fiction and history books. History is like a better version of fiction, in my opinion, because it's real stories. It's real and you actually learn about what happened. But fiction can be, you can say, like thought experiments for various possibilities, especially if they're good. I took care of a lot of different phone calls also. I was talking about a lawyer researching law for this thing that I'm doing to out various people who are behaving badly in poker. We're going to clean up the poker industry. It's going to be difficult, but making little steps towards that, figuring out what steps are required for all that. Often working on that a lot of the time. So prepping for this game, not that complicated, but usually what I do is I hire someone to go through all the hands of everyone that I'm playing against, at least if I care enough, and I find all the different reads on those different players and see what they're up to or what they're capable of and all that kind of stuff. I do have some history on like Phil Lock, for example, and other guys, and I happen to have a good memory for that, so that helps me a bit. Another thing is I may have someone texting me hands or just telling me what's going on the stream, and I may like check my phone to see later on and see what people are up to. That's quite important for this. As it happened on this match, went pretty well. I think I like coolered someone, and I am actually considering the bottom line while playing, at least to some extent. I don't focus too much on every single hand, but I often advocate this for you guys. Consider all the little details of whether you could have made a better decision or not. And the way my decision tree looks is basically I'm giving action, and there's an analysis for that too, where it can be united with logic in a way that's reasonable, but basically I'm giving action until post flop or until like somewhere in the later streets. It'll be the turn of the river if I'm winning. If I'm not winning, I'm probably gonna knit down and play solid on the whole, at least pre-flop. But at some point I'm being serious, right? This is how everyone works. And I will basically just add a lot of pips to what my ranges are earlier on, or try like various alternative lines or within reason. You can say that maybe GTO Wizard would improve, one of today's sponsors, by the way. And I will like test and experiment with different things, such as leading flops. I'll check raise a combo I don't know where to check raise. I'll do these other kinds of lines that are kind of GTO approved, but maybe aren't necessarily efficient. Or I'll like do some things that seem bad, but aren't really that bad, such as dark check in a spot and now just create a game tree for what happens later on in that. Once you get to that kind of level, you can do all that. If you truly understand poker, you can do such things, but such possibilities do exist, as I've alluded to on Twitter and in other contexts. So basically, an overall breakdown of what I do is I do play a lot of hands pre-flop and even on the flop sometimes to give loads of action. And that's just like pure action, basically. But beyond that, what I do relatively fast is I don't sacrifice a lot of EV and create a lot of alternative possibilities to make things a little bit more interesting with doing various experiments for trying things that are within reason, that if you were to look at a solver, or if you were to consider the hive mind of how things work, especially considering the exploits of different players, like if someone does fold a little bit too much or someone does hero call a little bit too much, you might go thinner for value and check raise the turn for value, that sort of thing, or like checkman raise the flop, like that kind of stuff. I'll just try those things that in theory aren't as bad as stupid as they look or as weird as they look. I'll do things along those lines. And I guess that actually does apply for many of the other things I do in the poker world. It's just that most people can't see the bigger game of all those, or the bigger, well, that's one way of putting it. Just see the possibilities within all those. Day of the life of the poker player, at least if you're successful, is pretty good. You get to be free and do whatever you want. I would say I had fun playing on the stream. If you don't think too much about your results, it's a lot of fun. And if you really think about it, a lot of times the wins and losses don't affect your life. I did actually win on the stream, I think $10,000 plus. I'm not sure. And then, yeah, I went back to work. Ideally, you want to be the same person no matter what happens. Very hard to do, but that's the definition of equanimity, a big thing in spirituality. But leave your comments if you want to see more, some other stuff, want to see more poker, whatever, want to see more weird stuff. I can do that too. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe to the Jungleverse to become free and do whatever you want to. And this is a typical day in the life of Dan Cates, LA edition. Stay tuned for the next one.